students from ELINET and to discover quite wonderful things, weather included. I was expecting rain every day, so I have only beautiful things to share about Glasgow and my stay here. Thank you for having me. I don't want to take too much of your time. So I will briefly introduce our insights into EMI related goals when it comes to the Romanian context. I should have started from our starting points, but if I have the slide about the aims, I will mention the aims. First of all, it was to investigate, because we did not look into EMI-related goals or EMI-related issues before. So we were mainly concentrating on investigating how institutional policies and strategies with regard to EMI are implemented at our university, including the type of programs and also the language use. Secondly, we also aimed at analyzing the goals of EMI programs as perceived by the students and academic staff of one of the EMI programs with the longest tradition at the University of Craivoa. The context is that there is a growing trend in using English as a medium of instruction in higher education in Romania. And it has also been included as an important part in higher education institutions' strategies. Also, the fact that Romanian higher institutions seek to internationalize their offer. So they include EMI-based programs in their internationalization strategy. Also, that there is a growth in the number of non-language subjects being taught in English, especially in the last 10 years. In particular, at the University of Craivoa, there has been a constant growth of such programs, but especially at MA levels. And of course, starting from the stringent need for empirical research stated by Nicola. So there is this need to have empirical studies that would address contextual realities. The research questions, we have two for this presentation. How are the national policy goals regarding EMI being operationalized at the institutional level? And what are the students and academic staff's perceptions of the importance of the institutional objectives with regard to this program? The starting points, of course, our involvement in the ELINET and the impossibility to say no to Nicola's question, can you write something about the Romanian context? So we thought that at first we would be just members, but then we realized that there is this need to have something, to describe a context, our context for the ELINET members and not only. So we started with from this very challenging task. And also when we started to look into EMI, we discovered not so many studies as we expected. Only studies on internationalization of higher education and studies that addressed issues related to international partnerships and students and staff mobility from the institutional perspective. So we had to come up with something more and look at what the stakeholders think and how they perceive EMI. As part of the Romanian context, we found out that, of course, EMI is part of the internationalization strategy. We also discovered that when it comes to analyzing the internationalization strategy in Romania, there were some difficulties because, as you can see, just a brief overview of the studies tackling this subject. So in 2011, the conclusion of one such study is that Romania has no overall internationalization or mobility strategy. Moving on, other studies discovered that the case of Romania was an unusual one because the policy framework evolved from a very well-articulated strategy with regard to internationalization and mobility in the 1970s to virtually no overall strategy. So that was quite surprising. In 2015, we have what we would like to call the reform of higher education and internationalization strategy, because a conclusion of a study conducted by members of our quality assurance of higher education activities. So they were members of this Romanian agency of quality assurance, which is our assessment agency. So the agency that assesses the quality in higher education. So they published a study in which the observation was that Romania does not have a national strategy regarding internationalization of higher education, nor do current higher education policy documents include clear priorities for this process, even though internationalization was mentioned as a national priority of the higher education system in general. So they also pointed out that there is a chronic lack of available data regarding some of the key indicators of internationalization in higher education. Also that there is a huge discrepancy between what institutions declare as their main goals and what receives focus and appropriate support. Among the problems that they identified, it should be some ways, the study mentions the lack of shared understanding of the concept of internationalization in the academic community, poor English language skills among the academic and administrative staff, academic courses not being harmonized with international trends, and new research and course materials not being adapted or translated in the language of instruction when the program is available in a foreign language. And a common concern was the relative lack of foreign language abilities among administration and to a lesser extent within the members of the teaching staff. Now, what happens after the study was published? Also in 2015, the other agency, we like to call them the money giver and the money taker. So the money taker came up with a study that identified the problems, and now the money giver comes up and publishes a guide that says, okay, so we did not have a common strategy so far, but we can have it right now. And they published this guide for the internationalization of Romanian higher education. And in this guide, teaching in a foreign language is an important component of internationalization at home. And the goal of such programs is to provide students with the academic experience that leads them to acquire the knowledge and skills needed in a globalized world and educate them in the civic spirit of a democratic society at a global level. Huge words. Now, the strategy that was, the guide also included some factors and components based on which the institutional strategy of internationalization could be later assessed in the evaluation process. And I would only like to mention some of these factors. So our institutions, higher education institutions, are assessed based on the number of programs and or courses taught in foreign languages, number of local or international students enrolled, number of teachers with the necessary teaching skills and communication skills in their field in one or more foreign languages, and also the number of foreign staff temporarily employed for teaching and or research activities. So these are something like key indicators. that are always associated with points, and the universities are assessed based on this. And also some of the components, for example, rethinking the curriculum and reviewing the content of the courses, teaching in foreign languages, competent academic staff and academic facilities, student support services, and services dedicated to increasing the employability of students. So again, really, really important components. Now, what happens at my university? Briefly, apparently there was an internationalization strategy in place since 2012. It was when my university created the Department of International Affairs, or internationalization, which was later on dissolved, unfortunately. So we had this internationalization strategy. It was basically related to Erasmus Plus programs and programs that would include and promote student and staff mobilities, and also training for students and teachers. Now, all recent institutional documents with regard to the development and implementation of the national educational policies and strategies include clear references to the internationalization component. Also, our strategic plan, so our university charter and our 4-year strategic plan includes such references, which are mainly concerned, among others, I don't know how to use this to point things, mainly concerned with designing new programs at all levels of study and promoting interdisciplinary programs in foreign languages and in priority areas of development for Romania. So this is a very important component. Now, other goals that are included in our institutional strategy, of course, increase the quality of education and research, effective training of students, increase the international prestige and visibility, create internationally renowned strategic partnerships, and also access diverse funding sources to finance internationalization strategies. Of course, attract new partners from the economic department, since this is another important component when it comes to assessing a higher education institution. Now, what actually happens? We offer programs taught in English. We have 2 bachelor programs and 8 master's programs. This looks very nice, but when we tried to investigate what happens in classroom or in practice, we could not access all of these programs, but only the first one. The Faculty of Automation, Computers and Electronics allowed us to interact with their students and their staff, and they were open to discuss. This was not surprising, because this is the program, the EMI program that has the longest tradition at our university. It's been taught in English since 1993. Nobody spoke of internationalization or strategies on internationalization in 1993, but it is also one of our most successful programs. And also, we have to admit that this is an example of good practice. Now, our methodology, I know I don't have time, but very briefly, just very briefly. 5 minutes, oh, plenty. So our study, we will share everything with ELINET. So if you're interested in our findings, preliminary findings, because we still get responses, which is surprising and really welcoming for us. So our study is a quantitative investigation of the experiences and practices at this faculty, more specifically at the specialization of computer science. We used as our research instruments, we benefited from our ELINET friends, because we were inspired by the questionnaire that Nicola used in one of her studies, and that also Heath Rose was talking about, and Karisha Khan. So we basically got inspired by their tools, and we adapted them to apply to our context. So we created questionnaires for the academic staff and for the students. They were slightly different because we were interested in their perspectives. And also we had some semi-structured interviews with the members of the academic staff. We found out that based on recommendations that, for example, I remember a recommendation that Professor Christina Hultgren mentioned at a conference that I attended, that we should talk to the elites, that is to the management members, go to the dean, go to the head of the department, interview them, find out. But when we started from top down, we said, oh no, you should talk to the other one. Oh no, you should talk to the other one. But we managed to talk to some of the key figures at this department, to the head, to the vice dean with the students' problems, and also to the vice dean with the international relations. So unfortunately, our data is limited, so that is why we won't talk about the results right now. So data collection, we distributed the questionnaire online. Some of the limitations that I have to mention are related to the small sample of the home students. So we only got 112 responses so far, plus the 5 that we got last week. So 112 responses. This is a good number if we think that most of the students are part of the senior students, so 3rd and 4th year. Actually, we were targeting these students because we wanted students with more experience in attending the program. Also, 20 members of the academic staff, 20 out of 37. This is not a promising number, but at least it gives us a perspective on how things are perceived among the academic staff. Another limitation is that we did not have any international students, but due to the very limited number, we have like 1-2% of the entire students are international students. But for us, international students count for really international students, like paying fee international students, but also exchange students coming to the program temporarily for 1 semester or 2 semesters through the Erasmus Plus program. So these are also included in the international. And also another limitation pertains to the fact that we only had answers from a limited number of faculty members, and hopefully we can improve that. These are some of the results. We have lots of results. We ask a lot of questions. Really, honestly, I mean, I can tell you everything about the benefits, the motivation, the language challenges, the difficulties, but unfortunately today we will only focus on their perception of the EMI related objectives. So we ask them, what do you think? Why do you think the institution created this program? Why is it important for the institution to have EMI, English-based, English-taught programs? And nice results, but just to mention, because I don't have time, I will share the presentation. Just a few of the findings. First of all, the highest rank objective is to prepare local students for the job market. And this is understandable. We are talking about IT, and an explanation for targeting better jobs in my region is that recently, in the recent years, Craiova has become quite an important IT hub. So a lot of international companies have branches and recruit graduates from this domain. And also there is another explanation, the fact that one of the main objectives of the faculty and of this program in particular is to prepare students for the job market and to increase the employability, because when they graduate, the faculty keeps track of their evolution. So they would like to know which of their students, or how much of the graduation quota gets a job after graduation. So that's an important aspect. Secondly, I have to mention the brain drain phenomenon, and Kari, you also mentioned it. It heavily affects our country, especially in this domain, causing many of our top graduates to leave the country. So they actually leave the program. They don't finish the program in the country. They just go, they have an Erasmus mobility, and they discover heaven, and they don't come back. Or they come back and finish the studies, but then for the MA, they would go abroad. Another problem is that they live also in search of better jobs. Although, as I told you, the jobs that they could get at the local level are really well paid, comparing to how much you would get for other jobs. 30 seconds? No? I tried. The second objective was to build partnership with universities abroad, important for both teachers and students. And another one was a result that surprised us. For the students, it was important to improve their intercultural competence. So they know that they would have to work in environments in which they would have to interact with international colleagues. And they would need this. They say, oh, we don't need so much the hard skills. We will learn more when we actually work. But what we need is competencies related to communication and also interaction with members of, or with people from other countries, because we will work on projects, we will have tight deadlines, and we will have to get along. And this was really an important result for us. The lowest ranked goals, which were among the first when it came to the institutional policy, was to attract international teaching staff and to increase the revenue from international students. These were the lowest in our survey. So although they are the top listed in the institutional strategy. So yeah, thank you.